guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to be doing my May reading wrap-up part 1. So I actually already posted part 2 of this reading wrap-up because that was my hike-a-thon reading wrap-up, which was everything I read for that read-a-thon. So I'll link that down below in the description as well as up in the cards for you. That video is going to have the majority of everything I read for May. I read about 19 books, so it is a huge wrap-up, so be sure and go check it out. This is going to be a teeny tiny wrap-up because I spent the first part of May just finishing up some series and listening to some podcasts. So I completed 3 things in the first part and then 1 thing after hike-a-thon that we're going to talk about now. Okay, so I completed Aurora's End, which is the 3rd book in the Aurora Cycle trilogy. I finished the 2nd book last month and I finally finished this series. I so enjoyed this series. I didn't love it quite as much as I was expecting. I think that it's a solid 4-star series for me. I was expecting it to be a 5-star just because of how much I love sci-fi, space reads, and Illuminate, which is also by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I did these via audio. The narrators are full cast. They're phenomenal. They're the same narrators as Illuminate. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but if you're curious about this series, be sure and check last month's video because I kind of go over it, but I've explained it a lot, so I don't want to talk too much about it here. But it was a 4-star, a really fun space series. The only other thing I will say is that it is a little more in-depth than some of the other space books I talk about, so maybe not the best for beginners, but if you love a good space sci-fi read and you love a ragtag team of characters, definitely check it out. Okay, then I read Unhinged and Ensnared from A.J. Howard. This is part of the Splintered trilogy. So I finished the 2nd and the 3rd book, and these are an Alice in Wonderland trilogy. So in this world, we're following Alyssa, and she has like the ability to kind of like hear bugs, or she thinks she does, and her mother is sick and she's in like an insane asylum, and she kind of tells a story that Alyssa's starting to kind of identify with, and she's starting to wonder if she's going crazy too, and she gets sucked into this whole Wonderland world. I so enjoyed this trilogy. I love A.G. Howard's writing style. I didn't love the 2nd book, but I really loved the 3rd book, especially the ending. One of the better endings I've read. We have such a cool romance in here that does things that I did not expect and that I have not seen in another book in a long time. If you love a Caraval legend type character, there's also a guy like that in the Entwined series, and kind of like Jax as well, kind of like a grand master that kind of like is in charge and is very charming but also can't be trusted. We have one of those types of characters in here, and I love reading about them. So this was just really good. I think I again settled on like a 4 stars for all the books. The ending of this one is almost a 5-star, but the whole book wasn't. The narrators for those are not my favorite, so I will say that. I also read a little bit of Untamed, which is the novella that goes with it, but I'm really trying to knock some series out and I just wasn't invested in what was happening. So there's 2 stories in here, so I'll probably jump back into this at some point. But for now, I decided to just kind of set it aside. But one of the stories in here technically is a continuation of the whole series. So if you really like it, check this one out also. And then at the very end of the month, I read Lord of the Flies. This was on my hike-a-thon list and I just didn't make it in time. I really wanted to read it. It was only a 7-hour audio, so I squeezed it in the last day of the month. This is a kind of loose retelling of Lord of the Flies, but it also has this other trope that I love where a bunch of like influencers get invited to this like secret exclusive private island. They think they're gonna get there and everything's gonna be like fancy and like villa-esque with like celebrities and concerts, and then they get there and then there's like nothing and they kind of have to survive. I read Solstice last year for hike-a-thon, which was my favorite read of last year for that read-a-thon, and this has the same kind of a premise but very different. This one reminded me a little more of Beauty Queens from Liva Bray. It's very wacky. The influencers are super obnoxious, more than what you would expect, and it's got like a humorous quality about it. Overall, it was just kind of like a fun, silly type of read. If you like Beauty Queens, I would definitely check this out because it's very humorous, very silly. I like the island vibes about it. I liked our main character. She runs a podcast and she is not really famous or anything, but she decided to go to this trip anyway. She has a small following, so everyone there is kind of like making fun of her for not being like a real influencer. And she's got a podcast and you're hearing like her talk about the podcast. And I like the little podcasting elements as well, where she unsolves mysteries from music. There's like a mystery you have to solve on this as well, but it was enjoyable and I wound up giving it 4 stars just for like pure enjoyment. Hey guys, Macy popping in here because I missed one book. I finished this a few hours after I filmed and I wanted to include it in this video. So I did a reread of Nevernight by J. Kristoff. I did this again to prepare to read God's Grave and Dark Dawn, which I have never gotten to. It's been 3 years since I read this. So glad that I reread it because I forgot so much. This is an adult fantasy following a girl that's going to like assassin school, is like a loose description. The beginning of this book is very confusing, and I've had a lot of people tell me that they DNF'd it, but if you hold out just for the very beginning and just let yourself be confused, everything will kind of clear itself up and make more sense. I've had so many people that DNF'd this and then they decided to keep reading it anyway and wound up absolutely loving it. This one has footnotes and things in it, which a lot of people don't enjoy. I feel like they're crucial to enjoying the story because it gives you more background on the world and understanding. Our main character is so feisty. So we are following teens in here, but this is definitely adult. We've got some spicy content in here. We've got some brutal content with the assassin school and murders and things. It's quite brutal and intense, just FYI. I would say more so than like Red Rising, but kind of similar. I enjoyed this one so much. The ending is so good. So glad I reread it and very excited to read the next one. So another 5-star. Okay, so that is everything I read for May that was not included in Hikeathon, so be sure and check out that second video. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below in the comments, how you did for reading in May, and what your June TBR plans as well. By the way, I will not have a June TBR video because I'm a little bit behind on videos, and most of it's just going to be me finishing series again until Mermaid Marathon. But my Mermaid Marathon TBR video will come out towards the end of June, so stay tuned for that, as well as the Mermaid Marathon announcement. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at TheBrightSideGirl as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side.